Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today I am back with another big list of recommendations for you, and this time it is the most over the top, the most outrageous, the most sexy, the most violent, and absolute crazy action movies from the 1980s that you might have missed. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so 1980s action movies. 80s was the decade of the action movie. I love the 80s. You see my shirt on that I designed? I absolutely love the 80s. And while we think about the biggest stars of the 80s and the biggest action movies come to mind right off the bat, Terminator, Rambo, all that kind of stuff, there are tons of action movies that went straight to video or just fell right underneath the radar and people miss them, but they are a lot of fun. A lot of people consider these B action movies. I just consider them awesome 80s goodness. They were filled with explosion, boobs, blood, bullets. That is what we're looking at here. And we're going to jump right into the list because it's a big one today. Starting at number 15, I am talking about 1987's Rolling Vengeance. Now, this is what happens when you use a monster truck of your own creation, only in the 80s could that happen, to exact revenge on a gang of knuckle draggers who murdered your entire family. Well, that's what happens. This movie stars Ned Beatty, and it stars Don Michael Hall, and Don plays Joey Russo, who, like I mentioned, his whole family was basically eradicated by just stupid, idiot family who are somewhat untouchable by the law in this small town. The trucker, Joey, is going to build a massive, and I mean massive, 8-ton monster truck. That is going to be the tool for his vengeance for his family. He is going to touch those who think they are untouchable by the law. If you have not seen this one, this is just complete 80s. It is Death Wish with Bigfoot. That's what you've got here. And I'm not talking about the monster Bigfoot. If you're from the 80s, I'm talking about the monster truck Bigfoot. You know what I'm talking about. It is all in Rolling Vengeance. Check it out. A absolute blast at number 15. Coming in at number 14 is one that has a little bit more serious tone and a little bit more serious cast to it. And when I'm talking serious cast, I'm talking Rutger Hauer, Powers Booth, Kathleen Turner. You have Donald Pleasance in this movie. I am talking about 1984's A Breed Apart. Now, this one's got a little bit of an odd story to it, as Rutger Hauer plays a Vietnam veteran who's become a recluse after losing his wife and child, and now he lives on an island full of rare birds. That's right, rare birds. His only contact to the mainland is Kathleen Turner's character, until Donald Pleasance, who's basically a poacher, a very rich one, hires some other poachers led by Powers Booth to come to the island to steal bald eagle eggs. That is the plot of your movie here. Now, it's got some very hot scenes in here too, surprisingly revealing, and a fair amount of TNA that you might not expect from this movie to start off with. But it's all very heavy with this kind of goofy premise. But Rutger Hauer is not goofy in this at all. He is dead serious about protecting this island and the birds against all who come in. He starts to recruit some people to his side, and they are going to defend this thing to the end. Some people think this is Rutger Hauer's worst movie ever. I don't believe that. It is just one of those crazy 80s action movies, but this one is headlined by an all-star cast. Check out A Breed Apart. It comes in at number 14. Now, at number 13 is the first of what turned out to be a couple of Walter Hill films on this list. Turns out I'm just a big fan of Walter Hill, But this one in particular that comes in at number 13 is The Long Riders. And this one's from 1981, I believe. And this one it's basically Hill's look, or his take on the Jesse James gang, their formation, their exploits, their fame, and their ultimate undoing. So this is all by Walter Hill, his perspective on it all. And he did it in a very unique way by casting all real brothers as actors. He had Stacy Keach and James Keach, real brothers. He had Randy Quaid and Dennis Quaid. He had Keith, David, and Robert Carradine, all the Carradine brothers. And he had Christopher and Nicholas Guest. So he cast all brothers. He wanted that real connection between them. A very interesting way to go about this. But Walter Hill is a very different director and writer and producer. A very, very mixed bag in his career about what he's done. This one, it's full of your shootouts. It reads a whole lot more like a pure action movie in a lot of ways than a Western, even though it has Western elements. It is an 80s action movie, Walter Hill style, and it is a lot of fun. A very, very underrated and little talked about action with Western vibes to it. Not too long before Young Guns, so you kind of have those vibes to it. I really recommend you check out Walter Hill's The Long Riders. It comes in at number 13 on our list. Now, coming in at number 12 on our list is one that shifts tones again. This is one of those that takes the action movie from the 80s and goes very tongue-in-cheek style, while also kind of trying to play it serious, but very exploitative with the women in this. This is what they called the guns and girls sort of action movie that Andy Sidaris was famous for. I'm talking about 1989's Savage Beach. Now, every principal actress in this movie was a former Playboy playmate. If they had a big role in this movie, they had been in Playboy. That was sort of his calling card. But you have Donna Spear and Hope Marie Carlton, who reprise their roles. They play the roles of these characters several times in several of Andy's films, of Donna and Taryn, and they are DEA agents. And this time, they find themselves on a remote Pacific island where there are several groups of nefarious people who are searching for a legendary lost cache of World War II gold. There's even a little bit of supernatural elements to this, but you are going to get plenty of your TNA. It kind of takes any like steaminess or sexual scenes from most action movies in the 80s and just cranks them up to 11 with all these beautiful ladies running around in bikinis. So they're in bikinis, revealing clothes. They're out there with giant guns like Arnold Schwarzenegger shooting around. But it's fun. It is mindless 80s fun. It's like we know what 80s action movie guys want. This is a B movie in every sense of the word. It's an exploitation movie in many ways, but it is 100% 80s, and it has plenty of action to suit you. Plenty of explosions, plenty of guns, plenty of girls, plenty of bullets, boobs, buns, all that stuff. It is all here. It was a calling card of Andy's films, and Savage Beach is at the top of that list from 1989. It comes in at number 12 on our list. Now, at number 11 on our list is a often overlooked Clint Eastwood film. I am talking about 1989's Pink Cadillac. Now, he stars alongside Bernadette Peters in this movie, and horror fans might catch a glimpse of my man Bill Moseley in this movie too. He plays part of the group of crazy psycho bad guys in this. But Eastwood plays a skip tracer named Tommy Nowak, who basically is hired to track down Bernadette Peters' character, who is a bail jumper, whose really only crime is that she married poorly and she was with this guy who is a would-be cult/gang leader of these criminals who run guns and money and who knows what else. And she was left with counterfeit money of his. So that's why she went to jail. She has jumped her bond, and Clint Eastwood, who uses a variety of fun disguises in this movie, everything from a clown to a slick like pimp, whatever else he needs to do in this movie. Is pretty fun to see Clint Eastwood do all of this stuff. Well, she takes off in a Cadillac filled with cash. So not only is he tracking her now, he has to save her from this gang of crazy guys that are just absolutely loaded down with guns. It's very underrated. Some people don't like it. I think it's fun to see Clint Eastwood do this role. There is plenty of action to kind of give you what you want from an action movie. Clint Eastwood, always great. I really recommend you check out Pink Cadillac. And just don't take it too serious. Have some fun with it like Clint is actually doing in this movie. He is having fun. It comes through. Enjoy it. Pink Cadillac comes in at number 11 on our list. Now at number 10 on our list is one that is a little bit more serious, which is funny because it stars a guy who is normally in more comedic roles. And I'm talking about 1987's The Principal, starring James Belushi and Lou Gossett Jr. Now, this thing is like 2 parts Lean on Me, 1 part Stand and Deliver, 1 part Dangerous Minds, with a lot more action than that. But Belushi plays Rick Latimer, who is a teacher who finally gets a job as a principal, but it is at the most violent, crime-ridden high school that you have ever seen in your life. Gangs, guns, knives, all that stuff. Fighting is a way of life at this school. So he's got to see if he can break the cycle of all of this violence before it breaks him. And he plays pretty much a badass alongside Lou Gossett Jr. helping him in this movie. I mean, the scene where he rides his motorcycle through the school, he's totally a badass in this movie, and you believe it, but he still has those little comedic undertones. Like I said, it is a combination of those movies with more action. I just don't hear people talk about this very much, but it is one you should definitely check out. Maybe not as many explosions and stuff like that as your typical 80s action film, but I still think it fits this genre and this list, so it comes in at number 10. Now, at number 9 on this list might be the best action movie you've never seen, and a lot of people have not even heard of it. I am talking about 1988's Shoot to Kill. This stars Tom Berenger and Kirstie Alley, but it also stars Sidney Poitier, who was coming back from a 10-year hiatus from filming. He had not done any movies in 10 years. He came in to this film and he played a FBI agent who has to team up with Tom Berenger, who is a tracker, like an expert tracker, to go into the Pacific Northwest woods to track down a murderer who has Tom Berenger's girlfriend, played by Kirstie Alley. So he's got the beautiful hostage. I think the tagline is, one is doing it for revenge, one is doing it for love. This thing is like cliffhanger, like the movie Cliffhanger. If you like Cliffhanger, you will probably like this. You're going to get a lot of high up stuff. You're going to get stuff out in the Pacific Northwest woods. You're going to get some like kind of mountain climbing. You're going to get all that kind of stuff. And they're hunting the bad guys who have a hostage in this. Very much Cliffhanger vibes with very, very well acted scenes. There's a scene with Sidney Poitier and Tom Berenger where they're just sitting around a campfire out in the woods. And I just caught myself watching it. I'm like, these two dudes can really act. Like, they can really act. And all they're doing is having a conversation. So in amongst all that action, you have these two actors. You forget about it. You're just like, damn, this is two guys that can really act, and they're doing this badass, big action movies. You're going to see some other people you recognize in this, like Clancy Brown. So you are going to get everything you want from this. A lot of people have never even heard of this movie, but I highly recommend Shoot to Kill. It comes in on our list at number 9. All right, coming in at number 8 on our list is one that shifts gears kind of hard again, because this is more of the sword and sandal sorcery type film. But there was a lot of those in the 80s. In fact, I am working on a whole list of them, but this one is definitely a guy's 80s action movie. I am talking about 1983's DeathStalker. Now, this is about a warrior who is tasked with getting the three powers of creation in the form of a chalice, an amulet, and a sword. He has to do this before the evil imposter king and sorcerer magician puts those three things together himself for his own nefarious purposes. So he is set out upon this mission, this quest. He has to rescue the real princess, not the evil imposter's daughter, but the real princess. He has to prove his worth as a warrior by joining this tournament. Of course, what was common to a lot of these movies, you're going to get very scantily clad men and women in this. So you're going to get some of your TNA vibes in this. It always kind of went hand in hand with a lot of the sword and sandal epics, and this one's no different. So you're going to get the TNA portion of your 80s action. You're going to get this epic adventure. So think of like Beastmaster and Conan together, but more, even more maybe on a B movie sort of exploitive level than that, but still pretty well done and some high production value. You're going to get everything you want. It's a sexy sword and sandal adventure. DeathStalker, you might find it on my eventual list when I do a list of just these movies, but I think it fits nicely here at number 8. Now, at number 7 on this list is one that I used to watch with my dad all the time. This is another very big 80s adventure movie starring Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. this time, 1986's Firewalker. It comes in at number 7, and it is a lot of fun. Now, a lot of people kind of downplayed this movie because they're like, oh, it's a ripoff of like Indiana Jones and Romancing the Stone and all of that. And it definitely is a mashup of those two films in just sort of that genre. But Max and Leo, aka Norris and Lou Gossett Jr., team up with their newly acquired partner because she has a map to a hidden treasure, whereas Indiana Jones says X never marks the spot. So they set off on this big adventure to find the treasure at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, and they have to kick, fight, and punch their way through all kinds of obstacles and bad guys and native curses and all kinds of things in order to track down and attain this treasure. I told you it is a very much Romancing the Stone in Indiana Jones, but you're going to get a lot of the Chuck Norris fighting and all of that, but he does a good job bringing some fun comedic elements to this. You're going to see Sonny Landham in this movie from The Predator, the big Native American guy that cuts his chest. If you've seen The Predator, you probably have seen The Predator if you are on this list. He stars in this one too. Lots of fun. My dad wore this movie out, so I've seen it so much. There's a scene where Max and Leo are kind of tied down in the middle of the desert. Hilarious. This movie is so much fun. Ridiculous. It's almost like a B-movie spoof of Indiana Jones in some sort of way, but it is a lot of fun. Chuck Norris, another one that is synonymous with 80s action. Firewalker, it is a must-see fun ride. If you haven't seen it, it comes in at number 7 on this list. All right, we are up to number 6 on this list. And at number 6, we got Chuck Norris again, and maybe my dad's favorite Chuck Norris movie, so therefore I've seen it probably more than all of the rest. I am talking about a canon film. Lots of canon films fit categories like this. I am talking about Missing in Action 2, The Beginning. Yet, not the first one. I actually like this one better. This one's from 1985. It stars Chuck Norris as Colonel Braddock, and man, he gets to, as my dad would say, step on some necks in this movie. Chuck Norris's thing was always breaking necks, but he leads his group of Vietnam War POWs. They're in a POW camp that is led by another sadistic colonel, Colonel Yin, and he just loves to torture these guys. He's wanted for war crimes, all of that kind of stuff, and it is absolutely brutal. So they're in the jungles of like Southeast Asia, and so it's hot, it's sweaty, there's tons of that atmosphere. Think Rambo 2, but they're stuck in the POW camp the whole time. And it is up to Chuck Norris to lead these guys out, to escape, and to fight back. Now, there's stories in the Missing in Action movies that Chuck Norris actually had a bag put over his head with a rat in it, and they couldn't get the prosthetic thing to work right, and he bit a real rat. I don't know if that's true, but that's the kind of stories, that's the kind of gritty B-movie action, tons of fighting, martial arts, explosions, guns, all of that. They actually bring in some, let me think of how to say this, some ladies of the night in a couple of scenes. So they even check out that little box of, your TNA there. It's a little light, but they make sure they check that box. They had those 80s action movies prerequisites, and that was one of them. It is all here. Chuck Norris gets to be a badass for a couple of hours. Lots of fun. Missing in Action 2, The Beginning, comes in at number 6 on our list. Now at number 5 on our list is another Walter Hill film. But I think this one has to be here because, unfortunately, even I missed this one until just about a year ago. I am talking about 1981's Southern Comfort. Now, this movie is incredible. It stars Keith Carradine, Powers Booth, Fred Ward, Lewis Smith, who I loved from The Heavenly Kid. And this is about a platoon of National Guard soldiers in Louisiana who are on a routine training mission in the Louisiana Bayou. And it becomes a fight for survival, and almost to the level like of survival horror and folk horror when they steal the canoes of some locals and make the mistake of firing their blanks because they don't have live ammo. They fire their blanks and basically inadvertently start a war for survival with these locals who live in this area, know this area. It borders into folk horror and survival horror territory, but man, it is brutal. Man, it is full of 80s action. You've got explosions, you've got gunfighting, you've got booby traps, you've got jungle type warfare, all of that stuff. It is here, and you never even leave the States. It all takes place in Louisiana, and the ending is almost as scary and mind-blowing as the rest of it. This is incredible 4K from Vinegar Syndrome. But however you can see this movie, I recommend seeing it because this is one that even eluded me until recently. And wow, did I miss out. I don't want you to miss out on Southern Comfort from 1981. It comes in at number 5 on our list. Coming in at number 4 on our list, we are going back to Walter Hill again. And this is one I did not miss, but a lot of people did. And every time I hear that someone hasn't seen this movie, I stop what I'm doing and I'm like, you have to watch this movie, the one that comes in at number 4 on our list. It is Next of Kin, starring Patrick Swayze, Liam Neeson, Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt. You even have Adam Baldwin, not the Baldwin brothers, but Adam Baldwin from he played Animal Mother in Full Metal Jacket. And you have a young Ben Stiller. This cast is absolutely loaded, and that's not even all the recognizable faces you're going to see. This one came in right in at the tail end of the 80s in 1989, and Swayze plays Truman, a once hillbilly, now very cultured and educated Chicago detective. And his family are still in the hills of Kentucky, and one brother comes down out of the hills and gets himself mixed up with the Italian mob, and a very callous mobster murders him. This throws Swayze into the middle of a war of families between the Italian mob and his hillbilly family, and I'm going to tell you, the mob was not prepared for what was going down. The hillbilly family is led by Liam Neeson, who is great in this. This thing is filled with action. You get a contrast of styles of like the city slicker Italian bad guys and the hillbilly bad guys seeking their revenge. You've got fighting with bows and arrows and animals and all this kind of stuff versus fighting, you know, the urban warfare style of the Italian mafia, whatever. Incredible movie. Just absolutely nonstop action, everything you want. This is one I plead for people to watch if they have never seen it. It is an underrated Walter Hill film, an underrated 80s action film, and an underrated Patrick Swayze film. You're going to get everything you want out of Next of Kin. It comes in at number 4 on our list. Now, at number 3 on our list is one of the biggest action stars films from the 1980s, one of the biggest stars who has ever lived. But this movie, for some reason, just kind of ticks under the radar. So I feel like it belongs on this list, even though it stars Sylvester Stallone. I am talking about 1989's Lockup. Nobody seems to ever mention this movie. It stars Stallone. It stars Donald Sutherland, who plays one step shy of the devil as the vindictive, satanistic warden in this film. Holy smokes, is he evil, and he makes you believe it. Stallone plays a guy who has 6 months basically of minimum security sentence left to go, and he gets transferred to a super max prison in order to basically be left to as a plaything to Donald Sutherland, who is angry at him for making him look bad many, many years ago. Dude, this movie is very, very good. It gets very heavy. You're going to see other faces that you recognize in this film, but I think it's one of Stallone's better performances that just hardly ever gets talked about. Now, I know that there's a beautiful 4K of this. I still just have this old DVD for right now. I got to get that because I think this is a really good movie. It's got the prison movie vibes, but man, you have never rooted against someone so much in your life as you will against Donald Sutherland in this movie, which means he did a hell of a job. Absolutely a great, serious action ride. Lockup, a very underrated turn for Stallone. It comes in at number 3 on our list. Now, at number 2 on our list is another big action star from the 80s. And this one is maybe the one that I hesitated to put on the list as much as anything else on this list, because I think more people probably know this. But it just might be that I'm such a big 80s fan that I know it more than most people, and maybe everybody hasn't seen this. But I am talking about 1989's Cyborg, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. This takes place in a post-apocalyptic, plague-ridden United States, North America, and he basically is like a fighter for hire. Like the world has just gone downhill because of this plague, and he is hired by a woman to take her from New York to Atlanta because she has a cure for the plague. She's got to get basically to the Center for Disease Control. Now, growing up, I didn't miss this movie because I'm from the Atlanta area, so I always thought it was cool they were trying to get to Atlanta. So it's like part Mad Max and road movie, part Van Damme movie, sci-fi. It has all of those elements to it. I think the alternative, like foreign title for this is like Slinger or something like that, because he fights with this knife that he will throw. Tons of martial arts action because he has to get her safely from New York to Atlanta, but there is a gang of evil road pirates, which is basically what they are, that want to kill her and kill him and get the cure for themselves so that they seize control of a whole new world. Man, it boils down to a big showdown at the end. I can still picture the rain, the fight scene, the city of Atlanta sign back there. I actually think they used some of the leftover costuming and stuff like that, Canon did, for the Masters of the Universe movie, which is kind of interesting because they left it over. And of course, because it's Van Damme, you know you're going to get some sexy time scenes. You're going to get some TNA. 80s action movies always, even if it wasn't much, they had to check that box a little bit. You're going to find a little bit of it in here. And this movie, great villain in this movie. Looks scary, looks intimidating. Just a lot of fun. This is the definition of B awesomeness. B movie 80s action awesomeness right here. Cyborg. It comes in on our list at number 2. And that just leaves one spot, and we might as well go Walter Hill one more time, and probably literally and figuratively the biggest action star of the 80s in one of his most underrated and least talked about performances ever. I am talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger teaming up with James Belushi and Walter Hill to bring you 1988's Red Heat. Now, this one may be a bit more known than the rest of these, but I find that there are a lot of people that have missed this one, and they're like, Red Heat, what is that? Like, even here lately, it seems like Raw Deal, which is another under the radar, is known more than this one. But Arnold plays Ivan Danko, who is a tough Russian cop who is forced to come to the States and team up with cocky, wisecracking detective played by James Belushi, because they need to stop an international murderer and drug smuggler who probably maybe had something to do with some murders here in the United States and in Russia at the same time. You're going to see Gina Gershon in this movie. Peter Boyle is in this movie. I think this might be Gina Gershon's first movie. I'd have to check that, but I think it might be the truth. Gina Gershon, Peter Boyle, Lawrence Fishburne is in this film. And it's interesting to see Arnold's playing almost a machine, almost the way that he was in Terminator. There's some great fight scenes at the beginning of this film where he's in like a Turkish bathhouse and he goes in there and just kicks everyone's butt. There's a shocking scene at the beginning where he rips a guy's leg off and you're like, oh my God, he ripped a guy's leg off. But there's a twist to that. And you're going to get all the action. You're going to get Walter Hill's style, and you're going to get the grittiness, the griminess of the Chicago streets when you get here, contrasted where he was in the USSR at the time. This is a really underrated, like, kind of fish out of water. It's not a buddy cop comedy, but it becomes a buddy comedy as the two kind of, iron out their differences. That was a big thing in the 80s and come together. I really like this movie. This is a great 4K right here done by Studio Canal. I think you got to have Arnold and you got to have Stallone and you got to have Van Damme on any 80s action list. So finding some of their lesser known, lesser seen films, that's the way you do it. Walter Hill, again, he might as well be number one on this list. I think he had 4 or 5 films inadvertently on this list that tells you a little something about him. Great film, high recommend. At number 1 is Red Heat. And that is my list of sexy, fun, over the top, and underrated B action movies from the 1980s. These are so much fun. These are the ones that I rented in the VHS rental stores, the mom and pop places, watched on like Movies for Guys Who Like Movies on TBS, and was just like, heck yeah, on a Friday night with some pizza or whatever. Absolutely a blast. You're going to have fun with any movie on this list, and that's what I got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. If you want to help support the channel, you can join below at my YouTube link or Patreon link. Both are below. Get your name and lights on every single video. Behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking. If this is your first time here, I'm a working filmmaker. I've been doing that for a couple of decades. That's what I do. I love movies. I love to talk movies. We do everything here. We do lists, recommendations, 4K reviews, physical media news, rankings, all that kind of stuff from a fan and filmmaker's perspective, and I just love doing it and sharing it all with you. If that's your jam, hang around and spread the pop culture word. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.